Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive.
Absolutely. Always ready to explore new worlds.
Well, today we're going deep into Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn trilogy.
Ah, Sanderson,
Yeah,
a master world
he
builder.
really is. And Mistborn is a prime example of that.
Definitely.
I mean, where else do you find magic systems as intricate as Allomancy and Furukami?
Yeah, it's not just about spells and sorcery in this world. It's magic woven into the very fabric of society, politics, even survival.
It's true. You can really feel the weight of these magic systems on the characters and the world itself.
Yeah, and what I find fascinating is how Sanderson flips the script on those, typical fantasy tropes. He grounds these incredible magic systems
Yeah.
in a gritty reality where magic is as much a tool of oppression as it is of rebellion.
Okay, so for those who haven't journeyed into Mistborn yet, paint a picture for us. What's this world like?
All right, so imagine a world perpetually shrouded in ashfall, ruled for 1,000 years by, well, the tyrannical Lord Ruler.
Doesn't sound too pleasant.
No, not really, especially for the Ska. They're the oppressed underclass, forced into servitude, their lives basically controlled by the Lord Ruler's agents.
Oh, right. Those terrifying Steel Inquisitors.
Exactly. And the obligators, keeping a watchful eye on everything.
Yeah, it's a far cry from your typical elves and dwarves fantasy setting.
Yeah.
Almost dystopian, you could say. So where does Allomancy fit into all of this?
So, Allomancy is the more, I guess you could say, prevalent magic system, and it's deeply intertwined with the social and political structure of the Final Empire.
Okay, so for our listeners who might be new to this, how does Allomancy actually work?
Well, allomancers ingest and burn various metals to gain supernatural abilities.
Hold on, ingesting metals. That sounds a bit dangerous.
It can be, definitely, especially because the Lord Ruler, he tightly controls, the production and distribution of metals. This limits the Ska's access to allomancy, effectively using their own potential power against them.
Wow. It's kind of a brilliant, albeit brutal form of control when you think about it.
Yeah, it really is.
So give me some examples of these allomantic powers.
Yeah.
How does burning different metals translate to different abilities?
Okay, so let's say you burn pewter.
Pewter, interesting.
You suddenly gain enhanced strength, speed, and endurance.
That would be pretty handy for, say, a ska laborer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Forced to work in those harsh conditions.
Yeah.
Or maybe someone looking to, stage a rebellion.
Exactly. And then there's tin. Burning tin heightens your senses to an almost superhuman level.
Oh, wow. So like seeing in the dark, hearing whispers from across the room.
Yeah, even sensing vibrations through the ground.
Those abilities would be invaluable to, say, a skilled thief.
Hmm.
Like Kelsier, right?
Yes. Kelsier, he's our, infamous Ska thief who leads the rebellion, the one who survived the pits of Hathson.
Oh, man. The Pits of Hathson. That place is legendary for its brutality.
It is, and it's said that surviving Hathson can trigger something called snapping.
Snapping. What's that?
It's like a traumatic experience that unlocks latent allomantic powers.
Whoa. So trauma can actually awaken magic. That adds a whole new layer to this, right? I mean, the idea of power and what it means to be an allomancer in this world, it makes you wonder about, the psychological impact of such an experience.
Exactly, and that's one of the things that makes Sanderson's work so compelling. He doesn't shy away from exploring, the darker side of magic, the cost and consequences of wielding such power.
Yeah. It's not just about cool abilities. There's a real human element to it all.
Absolutely. But there's another layer to this world, a second magic system called Furukami.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me. How is Furukami different from Allomancy?
So while Allomancy is about consuming and burning metals for immediate power, Furukami is more about, storing and releasing attributes. Think of it like a battery.
So Furukamists can basically stockpile their own abilities.
Yeah.
Hold on, that sounds incredibly powerful and potentially dangerous.
Exactly. Imagine storing up years of, physical strength or mental acuity, then unleashing it all at once. But there's a catch. Furukami operates on this principle of balance.
Okay, I like where this is going.
If you store up strength for a day, you'll experience a day of debilitating weakness afterward.
Ah, so no free lunch in the world of Furukami. Got it. But why haven't we heard more about it? I mean, is it as common as Allomancy?
That's a great question. Furukami has been, well, largely suppressed. Its practitioners hunted down. It's a hidden power, its full potential a mystery even to most allomancers.
And that makes me think of Vin. right? The young Ska girl who discovers she's a Mistborn,
Yeah.
someone who can burn all the Allomantic
The
metals.
Mistborn, yeah, that's a whole other level of power.
Right. She's already got incredible power, but imagine if she could combine that with Furukumi.
Oh, that would be, interesting to see.
Right. Be like adding fuel to an already raging fire.
Exactly. And that's just one of the many ways Sanderson twists our expectations and challenges those classic fantasy tropes, you know? He introduces these incredible powers, but then layers them with limitations, costs, and societal pressures that create a world, well, far more complex and morally gray than we typically see in fantasy.
Yeah, it sounds like Sanderson's playing with fire here,
Yeah.
literally and figuratively.
He certainly is. And that's what makes the Mistborn trilogy such a compelling deep dive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like he took that classic fantasy world
Right.
and infused it with like a dose of hard-hitting realism, you
Yeah.
know?
It's not just about, swords and sorcery.
Yeah.
It's about the struggle for survival, the weight of oppression.
Yeah.
And I think we have to talk about the role of religion in this world.
Oh, absolutely. Religion in the Final Empire, it isn't just a backdrop. It's like a tool,
Right.
wielded by the Lord Ruler
Mm.
to maintain his iron grip on the Ska. He's crafted this image of himself as this godlike figure, claiming to have saved the world from this terrifying force, the deepness.
It's like he's created this narrative of fear and dependency,
Yeah.
using religion to justify his tyranny to keep the Ska in line.
Yeah.
But, not everyone buys into it, right?
No, definitely not. I mean, Kelsier, our rebellious hero, he sees right through this, this charade. He challenges the Lord Ruler's religious narrative, presenting himself as like this new kind of savior, a champion for the Ska.
It's almost like a battle of ideologies, isn't it?
Right.
The Lord Ruler using religion to maintain that status quo,
Yeah,
while Kelsier's offering this vision of rebellion and freedom.
precisely. And his tactics are fascinating. He understands the power of, symbolism and propaganda. He stages these daring heists, stealing from the rich, corrupt nobility and using those resources to support the Ska.
He's almost like a Robin Hood figure,
Right.
but definitely with a much darker edge.
Oh, yeah. He's not afraid to, get his hands dirty, to use manipulation, deception, even violence to achieve his goals.
Which makes him a very complex and controversial character.
Right.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, he walks this fine line between hero and, well, anti-hero,
Yeah.
forcing us to question whether, the ends justify the means.
Absolutely. And it's a question that's particularly relevant for Vin, She's caught between Kelsier's rebellious spirit and that allure of the nobility.
Oh, right. Because she infiltrates that world of the nobility,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Pretending to be Valette, this charming, well-bred young woman.
It's a high-stakes game, Espionage, but it's also, I imagine, a psychological tightrope walk for her.
Absolutely. She has to maintain this facade while gathering information, observing the power dynamics, trying to stay, one step ahead of her enemies,
Right.
all while dealing with her own traumatic past
Mm-hmm.
and that seductive pull of a life of privilege.
It's a brilliant way to show that, that stark contrast between the world of the Ska and the nobility
Right.
and how power can corrupt, even those with good intentions. We see it with the Lord Ruler who's become isolated and paranoid, and with the nobility who are blind to the Ska's suffering.
And even Kelsier, our champion for the oppressed, isn't immune to this temptation.
No, not at all.
His thirst for revenge, his willingness to use, pretty extreme measures could easily lead him down a dark path.
Definitely a constant tension that Sanderson weaves throughout the story.
It makes you wonder if anyone can truly escape the corrupting influence of power, whether it's magical, political, or social.
That's one of the big questions that Sanderson forces us to confront,
Yeah.
But there are so many other twists and turns
Oh, no.
that keep us on the edge of our seats, like that shocking revelation about the Lord Ruler's true nature.
Oh, right. He's not just some power-hungry tyrant. He's a deeply conflicted individual, haunted by his past and driven by this twisted sense of responsibility for the world's survival.
Exactly. It's like that classic road to hell is paved with good intentions scenario.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that revelation, it changes everything. It blurs the lines between good and evil, makes us reevaluate, everything we thought we knew about him and his motivations.
Absolutely.
And the rebellion itself, they face constant setbacks, don't they? It's not this smooth path to freedom.
Not at all. There are internal conflicts within the crew. doubts, suspicions that threaten to derail their plans. They're battling not only the Lord Ruler's forces, but also those deeply ingrained systems of oppression that have kept the Ska enslaved for generations.
That's like even if they overthrow the Lord Ruler, they still have to overcome that legacy of his tyranny.
Right.
Those deeply rooted prejudice and power structures that remain in place.
That's the real challenge, isn't it? Dismantling a system built on centuries of oppression. And it's not just external forces they have to contend with, you know?
Right.
There are internal conflicts as well.
Yeah.
Like the tension between Kelsier's aggressive tactics and Vin's, growing understanding of the nobility's perspective.
Yeah, I imagine her time as Valette
Well,
must have really, challenged her assumptions about the world, the people in it.
absolutely. It forces her to see those nuances, the complexities, those shades of gray that exist even within a seemingly black and white conflict. And her journey, I mean, it's far from over. She's not just a powerful Mistborn. She's a key player in the unfolding events, a bridge between the world of the Ska and the nobility.
It sounds like Sanderson is setting her up to be more than just a weapon in the rebellion.
Yeah.
Right. She has the potential to reshape the very fabric of this world.
Exactly. Her actions, her choices, they have the potential to determine the fate of the final empire. And that's what makes the Mistborn trilogy so captivating.
Right.
It's not just a story about overthrowing a tyrant. It's about that complex interplay of power, morality, and the struggle to create a better world.
Okay, you're totally hooked.
Yeah.
But there's so much detail, so much world building that Sanderson has crafted.
Yeah.
How does he manage to pack it all in without making it feel, overwhelming?
That's part of his genius, I think.
Yeah.
He doesn't just tell a story. He creates a world that feels real, lived in, a place with its own history, culture, and even intricate systems of magic.
I noticed that he spends a lot of time on seemingly insignificant details, like the specifics of, how pack animals are bred or the intricacies of noble etiquette.
And it's those details that make the world feel so immersive, You're not just reading about a fantasy world.
Yeah.
You're experiencing it through the eyes of the characters, absorbing those nuances of their daily lives,
Right.
the way magic influences even the smallest aspects of their society.
It's like he's thought about everything, right down to like the culinary preferences of the Ska versus the nobility. And it's not just the world building, right? It's the language that he uses. He has this knack for creating these memorable terms like snapping, metal mines, and utium.
These aren't just random words, They're carefully chosen to evoke this sense of wonder, mystery,
Right.
and even a bit of danger. It's like learning a new language, a secret code that unlocks the secrets of the Mistborn world.
Okay, one detail that really stood out to me was the Lord Ruler's logbook.
Oh, yeah.
Like a window into his mind, right?
Right.
Giving us these glimpses of his past, his motivations, his anxieties.
Exactly. We see his internal struggles, his doubts, his fears. He's not just a villain. He's a complex individual wrestling with that burden of responsibility and the consequences of his actions. And it's through his logbook that we learn about the deepness, right?
Yeah.
This mysterious threat that he supposedly defeated.
The details are still shrouded in mystery, but it's clear that the deepness is more than just a physical force. It represents chaos, destruction, the unraveling of reality itself.
Right.
It's almost like a metaphor for the internal struggles that both the Lord Ruler and our heroes are facing.
You're spot on. It's a reminder that the greatest threats often come from within, from our own, fears or our own ambitions, our own capacity for self-destruction. And the logbook also hints at the existence of another metal, that mysterious 11th metal that could potentially be used to defeat the Lord Ruler.
This adds like a whole new layer of intrigue to the story.
Right.
It's a race against time for Kelsier and his crew to find this metal and unlock its secrets.
And it's a reminder that knowledge is power, but that power, it must be used wisely.
It's amazing how Sanderson balances all these different elements. He has these complex plots,
Oh, yeah.
these intricate magic systems, these morally gray characters, and it never feels,
Right.
overwhelming. It all just fits together.
It does.
Okay.
He's a master of pacing and structure.
Yeah.
He knows how to introduce information,
Right.
raise those questions, and then answer them at just the right moment to keep the reader, like, completely hooked.
Okay, so let's talk about the ending of the Mistborn trilogy, because I've heard it's not your typical, like, happily ever after scenario.
Yeah, no, it's definitely bittersweet. I mean, the Lord Ruler, he's defeated, but at a great cost.
Right.
Kelsier sacrifices himself.
Yeah.
He becomes like a martyr for the rebellion.
Mm.
And then she ascends to a position of power. But it's a lonely and isolating role.
Yeah.
She's forced to make these incredibly difficult choices to compromise her own desires for that greater good.
It's a good reminder that revolutions are rarely, clean and simple.
Yeah.
There's always a cost.
Yeah.
And the aftermath can be messy
Oh,
and
yeah.
unpredictable.
Exactly. And Sanderson doesn't shy away from that reality. He shows us the challenges of, rebuilding a society, the dangers of unchecked power, and that enduring legacy of trauma and oppression.
And yet, even with all that, there's still this glimmer of hope, right? This sense that things might, eventually get better. Vin, with her newfound power and wisdom, she represents that possibility.
She embodies the idea that even in those darkest of times, even after unimaginable loss, there's always a chance for a brighter future.
So we've covered a lot of ground here today,
We have.
from the intricate workings of Allomancy and Fruitme
Right.
to those complex characters, the political landscape, those really thought-provoking themes.
Mm-hmm.
What's the big takeaway here? Why does the Mistborn trilogy matter?
I think the Mistborn trilogy, it's more than just a
So-
fantasy adventure. It's a story about the human spirit, our capacity for both good and evil, and our ability to overcome adversity and fight for a better world.
Yeah, it challenges us to think critically about power,
Right.
justice, and the choices that we make.
It reminds us that, even when the world seems shrouded in darkness, there's always a spark of hope, a chance for change, a reason to keep fighting for what we believe in.
It's a story that stays with you long after you've finished reading it.
It does.
Right. A story that makes you think,
Yeah.
makes you feel, and maybe even inspires you to be a better person.
And that's what makes it a truly revolutionary work of fantasy.
Absolutely. So to our listener, if you're looking for a story that will challenge your perceptions, expand your imagination, and leave you thinking long after you've turned that final page, we highly recommend diving into the world of Mistborn.
You won't be disappointed.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.